Hey everybody, how you doing tonight? It's Monday, episode 4 of Veteran Talk. Got some good stuff for you in a little bit. Tonight we have Nobody Knows on. He's going to add some commentary and his insight into some of the stories we're talking about, and just see how this plays out yet again. Hopefully we have another good evening. Nobody, please introduce yourself.
Hey guys, I'm Nobody Knows on Twitch, but in my normal life, I'm Dr. Kevin Jennings, and I'm a professor of criminal justice at Lincoln Memorial University in the great state of Tennessee. And uh, Dark Sword invited me on here to come and chat with you guys. And though I'm not a veteran myself, I've worked with veterans for a long, long time, and found them to be great students, great coworkers, and have dealt with a lot of veterans issues through my work with the criminal justice system.
Well, we're glad to have you on. Thank you again. Let's go ahead and jump right into this. We'll go with some good news. And
Always
we
start with the
have,
good stuff.
yep, start with the good stuff. Now, it's bad and it's good. This one's like, it's kind of 50-50. You know, a Vietnam veteran was attacked outside a VA clinic in Ohio. A couple of teenagers jumped him, asked him for money, jumped him, and then tried to steal his car. Well, one successfully stole the vehicle. Other veterans saw what was happening and jumped in to help. Um, this should never happen. Why this is happening in our society, I do not know. And it doesn't matter what era veteran he is. This should never happen.
Absolutely. One of the downsides with crime like that is that, the criminals want to find somebody who's vulnerable. And especially Vietnam veterans are all, kind of that age now where they're, at least on the outside, seen to be more vulnerable than a lot of others. So, as time goes on and they keep getting older, it's going to become an even worse problem, unfortunately. But as you said, nobody deserves to have that kind of stuff happen to them. And while I can't recommend you fight back when somebody's trying to steal your car, I'm glad that it worked out for this guy.
Well, like I said, one of them successfully got the car and took off, and they found the vehicle about 2 blocks away, abandoned.
Only 2 blocks away. That's a miracle.
Only 2 blocks away. They figure he was so scared he'd just give it up and just run.
Yeah.
At this moment, I mean, here's a post from his daughter, I believe it is. This man worked. He's in Vietnam. He was a Cobra pilot. I mean, you want to talk about nerves of steel and badass. All right.
Yeah.
You flying a freaking helicopter in the jungles of Vietnam. I bow to you. Now, I make no bones about it. I am not a wartime vet. Every video ever and being shot at or, things like that. I bow to everyone who has survived that. And I pray that, they all come back at least in one piece for those that are still downrange and will be going downrange. But I mean, they beat him up pretty well, but he still got a smile on his face. Daughter took him out for dinner, it looks like.
And that's the important thing, right? Luckily, they recovered his car, but even if they hadn't, that's just a thing. His life is worth far more than any car. But yeah,
I mean, he's 72 years old.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a breakdown of the parental standards in this country, as far as I'm concerned. Okay.
Well, teenagers have always done really, really stupid stuff. The peak of crime for any large group is, the late teens, because we have the kind of freedom and ability to do all the things an adult can do, but we don't have the maturity and experience and
the mental capacity.
Exactly right. So ever since we've been able to track crime numbers, it's always been that kind of late teens, early 20s that's been the worst. But the good news is I know it doesn't seem like it thanks to the media, but both violent crime and property crime have been plummeting the past couple of decades. There was a peak of crime right about 94, the mid 90s there, and violent crime and property crime have both been going really quickly down this years since then. So
Yeah, unless you're in New York or California or Oregon.
Those places are where it's going down the most.
That surprises me with the problems that they've been having the last year and a half.
Well, so just in the last year and a half, we've seen an increase in murders, and we're not quite sure why that increase in murders has happened, but it hasn't happened with other violent crime, which is kind of weird. I guarantee you there are going to be a lot of future papers published on that very question. Why did murders go up in the last year or 2 years when the rest of violent crime really hasn't? So,
and how much of it's actually being reported?
Well, yeah, that's the other problem is that the media focus on crime has gone up, so fear of crime has gone up as crime is going down. It's people are see these crimes over and over and over again every time they turn on the TV, so they think, oh my God, crime is outrageous, out of control, when it's actually fairly good news overall.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Oh, we got some people watching. Hi, thank you for showing up. I appreciate you. Thank you for the follows. Didn't pop up for some reason. But no, it happens from time to time. I don't get the alert. But I appreciate you stopping in. If you have comments, please hop in the chat or over in the come on over to my Discord. We can talk as well if you want to there. So let's go to our next story. Now, this is a video, and they're saying it's a new hope, but you'll find out soon enough that this has been going on since the mid 80s. I'm going to stop the video periodically so that I don't get stuck with, some BS crap, like, oh, legal shit. I don't do legal shit. That's what his job is. He does, he's the professor. So we'll do we'll go through some of it. We'll stop it. We'll do some commentary and then keep it going. But this is a really good thing. And I hope I can get people to go out and reach out to their legislators to see if they can help push this through, because you'll find out at the end of this, they're looking at it not being able to start happening until 2024. So let's hop into the video and see how it goes.
Here's something you probably don't know. As many as 1 in 5 veterans suffers from PTSD. Post-traumatic stress disorder is a leading cause of suicide among vets. But David Martin has word of a surprising treatment that could lead them out of the dark.
I stabbed myself in the neck and the wrist with a knife. And I just wanted the pain to stop.
A series of Pulitzer Prize-winning photographs captured the agony of former Marine Scott Ostrom, his life overwhelmed by PTSD after 2 tours in Iraq. 12 years of nightmares, panic attacks, and failed relationships. A danger not only to himself, but to others.
Now I'm going to stop the video right there. This is an ongoing issue across our country with veterans. And as you can see in this, where I stopped the video, he's self-medicating. Too often this happens every day for a lot of these vets.
The suicide rate among veterans is, I believe, the highest of any major group that we keep track of.
It is.
And luckily, I'm actually working with some professors of social work from the University of Alabama and the University of Tennessee, and our specific project doesn't have to do with veterans, but those two, a lot of their primary work is finding services for veterans and their special issues. So things like, what's happening in this video don't happen.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that we're trying to do too. My associate DV Recoil 1, I stream with him a lot, several times a week, as a matter of fact. And that's one of his functions. The monies that are coming into his channel are going to go towards, helping veterans in need, especially those that are in this kind of shape, homeless, addicted veterans. He donates everything to the DV Farm. Great program. Look it up online. It's exactly how it's spelled, DV Farm, FARM. And they do some great work. And they can use all of the stuff that, all the monies, donations they can get. So if this
That's
channel
awesome.
ever gets monetized, we'll see how things go. I'm not going to be able to recoup the money I've cost to do this, but hey.
But you're not in it for the income, right?
No, I'm not. I mean, I legally can't have a job, but we won't get into that. So let's head back to the video.
Deep down, I was angry. So really, I think I was just looking for a fight.
What were you angry about?
I was angry with myself. I felt guilty for some of the things that I failed to do when I was overseas.
Failed to do, how?
I watched my friend burn alive inside of a Humvee, and the fire was too hot, and I couldn't get to him. So I felt like I needed to be punished for that.
You're being haunted by a memory of something that happened to you.
Rachel Yehuda of Mount Sinai Hospital in New York has spent 30 years working with veterans and other victims of PTSD.
The standard treatment for PTSD has been psychotherapy, and there are two medications that are FDA approved for the treatment of PTSD, both of which are antidepressants.
How effective is the treatment?
These treatments tend not to really solve the problem for most people, but they are better than nothing.
I can attest to this. I've been on these medications for years, and I still have days I don't want to get out of bed. If it weren't for, my dogs needing to be fed or whatever, I'd still, I'd lay in bed all day. I really would. So
Yeah. I have friends with those, similar PTSD, major depressive issues, veterans and non-veterans, and they say essentially the same thing.
well, I can tell you, especially, I still have PTSD around the September timeframe every year. I don't want to go to sleep. I literally do not want to sleep, because as soon as I close my eyes, everything is right there again, and I have to relive it. And it's not fun. It's you feel helpless, and that feeling does get to you. I've said before, I've had to not hospitalize myself. I went to a residential program and got away from all my daily stressors of my kids and family and everything. Let them take the reins for that, and I just went and I focused on myself for 3 weeks. It did help in for my case, but it wasn't a fix-all. And I can't live there for the rest of my life, nor would I want to. So these drugs are just these drugs. They do level me out. I can tell you right now, if I miss a dose of my meds, within about 6 hours, for no apparent reason, I'll just be sitting here with tears streaming down my face, crying. Or God forbid I read a story or watch a movie or something that's, got a little heart-wrenching in it. I'm in the corner, curled up in a ball, wondering what happened.
Yeah, if you haven't watched it yet, you need to avoid Futurama. Markets itself as a comedy, but man, it can just leave you soul crushed.
Oh, I'm sure.
Desperate for relief, Scott Ostrom answered a Facebook ad seeking volunteers for an FDA-approved trial using a psychedelic drug called Mdma, better known by its street name, ecstasy.
It really did change my life. Come on, buddy. In a short period of time, in 6 months.
When I first heard about this, I thought to myself, how could this possibly be a good idea? Psychedelics were illegal and designated by our government as being of potential harm and no medical benefit.
Then at the annual Burning Man Festival in Nevada, she met Rick Doblin.
I knew that MDMA was great for PTSD in 1984.
This type of treatment. We're going to find out what happened.
Doblin heads a psychedelic research organization called MAPS, and for decades has been fighting laws which made psychedelics illegal.
When we think now about how many people over the last 50 years could have been saved from suicide or depression if the research hadn't been shut down, it's a tragedy.
It was not until 2016 that the Food and Drug Administration authorized Phase 3 trials for MDMA, the same kind of Phase 3 trials COVID vaccines went through to prove they are safe and effective.
The results from the latest Phase 3 trial of MDMA were just astounding.
So these studies, have they produced specific results?
2/3 of the people that were treated with a course of MDMA no longer have PTSD.
Think about that for a second. 2/3 of the people that were treated with MDMA showed progress. Oh, got new
She didn't say
viewers.
showed progress. She said no longer have PTSD. I mean, that's a miracle.
I am not muted, Recoil. I just wasn't talking. Maybe you've got me muted. I don't know. All I know is I'm transmitting. It says I am. Hopefully, my bit rate is shitty as hell again. Hope everything works out well in the long run. So, here we go. Start crying, dude, because you must have gone deaf. So, all right. I mean, these things are out there, but of course, our government says, "Oh, well, this is bad stuff. You can't have it." Really? You don't want us to find out, though. Yeah, not me. Yeah, you can always hop in on the channel and we can talk if you have the ability to do so. So, but we got new viewers. Thank you for stopping in and watching. I hope we're helpful. Don't forget, you can hop in the chat if you want. Don't forget to like and everything. Always hop in over on my Discord, and we can talk there if you want to. It's not absolutely public. That choice is yours.
Would you call this a breakthrough?
I would absolutely call this a breakthrough.
What does the FDA think?
They've designated MDMA-assisted psychotherapy as a breakthrough approach.
What does that mean in terms of what you can do now?
Well, it doesn't mean you can start taking MDMA on your own. It means that the data are so good that let's get this on a fast track for approval.
So they just sucked the wind out of my sails. I can't go down to the street corner and pick up any ecstasy and start treating myself. What kind of shit is that?
You can, just not legally.
Don't get me started on laws. We're not going to laws.
But life on that fast track costs money.
The biggest obstacle really for us was raising the funds to do the research because the pharmaceutical companies were not interested, the major foundations were not interested. It was all too controversial.
Thank you. Enter Bob Parsons, a maverick billionaire who first took psychedelics 3 years ago. How much of a difference did psychedelics make in your life?
The quality of my life has increased immeasurably.
Never a good student, Parsons joined the Marines at 17 and was sent to Vietnam. A month later, he was wounded.
This is a picture of me in the field hospital.
It was the last he saw of combat, but the war continued to haunt him.
I was a completely different guy that came home than the guy that left. The guy that came home, he had a short temper, never felt like he belonged no matter where he was or who he was with.
Was it getting better? Was it getting worse?
I believe it was getting worse. Somebody would ask me if I served in Vietnam, I'd start crying.
Now think about that. By the way, yeah, you owe me a show, but that's going to be Wednesday, Recoil, okay? I love you, but you're going to do your own. I got nobody knows in here right now. And, I mean, you can hop in with me, but you still owe me a full show if you can. But, I mean, think about this. this man was in Vietnam for a month before he got wounded, and the what he brought back with him has lasted for so long. And then, of course, you know, being a billionaire, rules don't always apply like this little people, okay? But I know what he's talking about. I know about that anger. I know about that frustration. And it's a painful, painful thing. But it apparently this is helping. Once it gets widespread, maybe I'll look into doing it. You know, we'll see how things go and where it ends up.
Parsons made his fortune from GoDaddy,
GoDaddy.com.
an internet company which he turned into must-see TV with risque Super Bowl ads.
Now you're a billionaire. What are you going to do with all that money?
I'm going to do what I can to get psychedelics approved for therapeutic use.
Parsons has donated more than $7 million to psychedelic research. Under the influence of MDMA, Scott Ostrom was able to actually visualize his inner demons.
Think about that. Being able to visualize your inner demons, being able to pull them out and address them. You know, I said it last week, you know, we're raised to hide our emotions and lock things away, and, you know, we can deal with it ourselves. Now, mind you, you know, we break a leg, oh, let me just go ahead and splint that up and I'll just be fine. But the reality is a lot of times we need professional help. But the professional help that we've been getting up till now isn't sufficient. And the proof of that are the numbers of suicides, suicide attempts, veterans that are self-medicating, you know, families are being destroyed and things. It's a sad state of affairs.
Yeah, it's, you know, the societal pressure on men to be tough and to not admit weakness and to you know, bottle up your feelings and never cry and never, you know, never let people see that you're vulnerable. I'm glad it's starting to that shell is starting to crack, and we're starting as a society to kind of change that, because you're right. I mean, it's really damaging to not be able to deal with what you're feeling. And the more kind of masculine the group that you're in, and I'm sure, you know, veterans are one of those ultra masculine groups, the worse it gets.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, like I said, we weren't born into a warrior society. You know, we like to think we're these, you know, big badass warriors. There are those, no question about it. But the majority of us, you know, we're not. And, you know, you go and you see the horrors of war, just like during World War I and World War II and everything else. You bring that back with you and you don't know how to deal with it. So you lock it away, or God forbid you take it out on somebody else.
Yeah.
This spinning black ball started to open itself up to me in different layers, like an onion. And then each layer revealed like a new memory. And it was almost like the layers were just opening and opening and opening.
At the center, he found a part of him he calls the bully.
It was a terribly frightening creature.
The bully is basically the person you had to become in order to survive 2 tours in Iraq.
That's right.
That is a very profound admission as far as I'm concerned. We have to become different people. Trauma does that to everybody. It doesn't matter whether you've been to war, lost a close family member, or even a pet in some instances. It's all trauma, and our brains react differently to it. It's like having, you know, something happens in front of you, and they say that, you know, everybody says, you it's either fight or flight. Well, there's actually 3. There's fight, flight, or freeze is what it really is.
Yeah.
And during the event that I witnessed that caused my PTSD, I saw all 3 of that happening right in front of me. Okay. I'm a fighter. I went literally towards the gunshots. Okay. I'll quickly tell a story. A fellow veteran, I was in the parking lot of the local VA that I was waiting for an appointment. I showed up kind of early. I watched him shoot himself twice in the chest, once on each side of his chest.
Oh, geez.
I got out. Now, mind you, at the time I was so physically bad, I had a walker to get around with, and I got over as fast as I could, and I was actually the first person to make it to him. I did not even think until after the fact that, he had a firearm and I might become a target. My ex-girlfriend brought this up to me. And I kind of looked at her and went, that didn't matter. Had he pointed it at me, that'd have been another story. He went down. Did not feel threatened in any way, shape, or form. But while I'm there, people saw it and were walking away, and there were others that saw it and froze in their place. They didn't know what to do or how to react. So for this man to have that level of an admission after treatment is very promising. I hate to use the word promising, but that's what it is. Because it looks like we've got to delve into that dark recess of our mind, into that monster that was created when these things happen to us, just to keep us to survive and functional at some level.
And I'm glad you pointed out too that it's not just combat that can do these things, because PTSD is really common among veterans, of course, but it's also really common among crime victims. That's one of the things that nobody really talks about, and the TV shows never show you, is that being a crime victim, often you develop a lot of these very, very similar issues.
Yeah, well, as sad as it is that happens. Oh, what is going on? Is my stream fucked up again? No, there it is. Okay, it's back. Let's get back into this.
That's who the Marine Corps trains you to be, a fighter and a killer. And that's who I had to become to survive those deployments.
With the aid of 2 psychotherapists, he was able to come to terms with it.
After those 3 MDMA sessions, I haven't had a nightmare about the war since.
Do you suffer panic attacks anymore?
No.
Do you have any thoughts of suicide?
No.
But like a drunk getting sober, he can't undo all the damage done, all the years lost.
I spent over a decade
Thanks for the
pushing
history,
people
Call.
away and making my life harder on myself and not loving myself. So as far as dealing with the combat part of my PTSD, we were successful in that, but I still think I can be a better person. I still think there's room to grow.
MDMA may be a breakthrough, but it's still a trial drug not likely to be available to the estimated 1 million veterans suffering from PTSD until 2024.
What the breakthrough means to me is that we have a meaningful way to spend our time now so that we can bring a new paradigm of care to the people that need it most. It just means that there's real hope out there that may really end up being a game changer for people that have suffered for way too long.
Now, if my stream screwed up, which I'm sure it did a few times, you can go to CBS News. It was a Sunday morning show, and you can watch it in its entirety. But I will tell you right now, I have high hopes. This is the time I'm going to bring up politics. Please contact your Congress people, your legislators, okay? Write them. Get your family, your friends to write them. Push this through, okay? These studies are being done. It's safe. It's effective. When you got a 66% rating, or what's the word? Come on, brain.
Recovery rate?
success rate. A 66% success rate. That's outstanding. I don't know that I could beat that with anything else, right? Especially not with what's going on with the medications today, because today it's a failure with what's out there on the market. No, the drug companies don't want this out there. You know why? Because it stops people from having to take the drugs. Okay? I take, just for my anxiety and depression and when my PTSD flares up, I'm taking 12 to 14 pills a day. On the worst days, just to function. And when I say function, feed my dogs and go to the bathroom. On the good days, I don't have to take as many. I take 9. So it doesn't work. I mean, I'm taking a shit ton of pills and poisoning my body. You know, and what are we supposed to do about these things?
Yeah, the legislation around drugs, you know, in the entire history of the country has been at two extremes. You know, in the 19th and very early 20th century, it was just everything was legal. I mean, you know, famously, Coca-Cola had cocaine in it. You could buy a heroin over the counter.
Yeah.
But then we swung way too far the other way, and drug laws for the last 100 years have been just absolutely nuts. And it's good to see that we're finally getting a little bit of that, you know, return. Well, I shouldn't even say return, but a seeking for a balance that has never really been there. So things like this are really good signs. I have a friend who's doing a very similar program. She's doing a very similar therapy thing with ketamine instead of MDMA.
I've heard about that.
And she's cannot stop talking about how amazing it is and how big of an impact it's had. And she's not even done with the full course of treatments. So
I don't doubt it.
Yeah, so it's showing a lot of promise, and the laws are slowly working their way towards, you know, a good science-based balance rather than, you know, feel-good anti-drug, just say no nonsense.
Exactly, and that's the biggest problem. Oh, got some new viewers. Hi, welcome to the channel. Thanks for stopping in. I appreciate having you here. Don't forget to like or follow. You know, we're got some good news today. We're discussing it right now. Don't forget, you can hop in the chat and, you know, just sound off and tell me to go fuck myself, whatever you want. But let's say, you know, we're trying to have some fun, but get some knowledge out there. For those who are new into the channel, I've got Nobody Knows. He is an associate through DV Recoil, who of course we love and admire. He is not a veteran, however, he is a college professor of criminal justice, correct?
Yes, that is correct. Sorry, I could not find the mute button there for a second.
No, it happens. It's all good. And he has had a lot of students that were veterans, and I'm sure conversations and things, and trying to help them get through some of their troubles to get their degrees, which is, of course, is always a great thing. So, excuse me. But again, glad to have you here. Hop in on a chat if you want. So, again, like I said, reach out to your legislators, see if we can get this pushed through sooner, because the sooner we can get this out and actually be able to be used appropriately, I think the less lives we're going to lose. Our 22 a day, if we can get them into treatment, hopefully will drop substantially. We shall see, only in time. But if we've got to wait another 2.5 years for this to happen, you know, it's not like this is a brand new drug. This is not it's not a brand new therapy either. Like I said, go back to the store, CBS News. It was Sunday morning show. Look it up. Just do a Google for it, and it's a real eye opener. So, okay, let's go to stupidity.
I'm actually glad to see that they're doing it or looking into doing it.
they didn't get the authorization until 2016 from the FDA to start doing it again.
It doesn't surprise me. I mean, if you look at where it's derived from, there's actually a very, very interesting YouTube documentary that I won't name unless you ask me to. But it actually is the guy that synthesized MDMA, who they called, of course, Dr. Ecstasy, but that is not the name that he gave it.
Right.
It was MDMA. And it actually tells how it's made, how they were actually using it for couples therapy and stuff like that before the government came in and said it's a no-go.
Well, and that's the problem. All of a sudden, once something hits the streets, that's when the government gets involved because the kids are stupid. Okay? We were discussing this earlier.
100%. 100%.
It is known for a fact that the male human, their frontal lobe does not fully form until their mid to late 20s. All right. Now
I'm sure it's a complete coincidence that's when your crime rates start to go down at that exact same age.
Exactly. That's part of it. But let's think about that for a second. These are the people not mentally capable in most cases that are enlisting in the military, that we're giving firearms and explosives and multi-million-dollar vehicles to. But we can't trust them to drink a beer or have a firearm on base or on post.
It's a shame, man. I mean, you get legislation says they're not old enough. So
yeah, and that is unacceptable. I'm a firm believer that if you can go and give your life for this country, not 17, under your own, as you're a legal adult, you can vote, you can own property. I think my personal opinion is you should be able to drink, you should be able to have cigarettes. Okay. Legislating morality failed miserably in the 20s, I believe it was. When they banned alcohol in the United States. How will that work for you?
It's just like with anything. You're going to create a criminal element is what you're going to do. And once that criminal element is created, it becomes taboo. I mean, we can look back. We can honestly, if we really wanted to thank somebody for that happening, we'd go back to Nixon, the war on drugs, that put a stop to any research when it came to anything that could possibly be helpful when we're talking alternative medicine, such as MDMA, psychedelics, specifically psilocybin, which actually has been proven to work.
Yeah.
Just going to throw that out there for post-traumatic stress disorder and similar things as well. Not just, for, hey, these are fun, let's eat them. But, it put a stop to any research that could have been done. I mean, including medical marijuana for a long time. And we've got 22 states that are legal right now. Yeah. And many more are following suit. But I mean, once you get that criminal element created, thank you, Nixon, for that. That's when things just get blacklisted, put on the shelf, even though it could have some benefits.
Well, a lot of this happened. A lot of it happened before Nixon. Okay.
But to be specific, the law that DV's talking about is the Controlled Substances Act of 1974, I think it was.
You are correct.
But you're right in that Nixon deserves a lot of the blame for it. But as I think Dark Sword was about to start saying, he's by far not the only one. You can talk about Reagan with Just Say No. You can talk about who I think it was Wilson in 1914 with the original I forget the name of the law, but the original kind of anti-drug act that took the cocaine out of Coca-Cola and made marijuana illegal. And so it's been a long string of failures by a lot of different leaders.
Well, here's the problem. A lot of those the original laws dating back to the early 1900s and so were actually based. They were, number one, they were lied to. Congress was lied to. Number two, it was based on racism.
Yeah.
Okay?
It was all,
is, but they're never going to go back and say that. and they're not going to correct it.
Well, no, because they've already received the backlash. Everybody already knows it anyway. But I mean, we can even get down into it of not just legislation. I mean, we can boil it down to some old boy, and I can't remember what his name is 100%, but he had a patent on paper. And when people found out that they could make paper out of hemp and you could grow your own hemp, and instead of buying his paper, which, he had a patent for the machine, so he got paid every time a piece of paper was printed.
Yeah.
So now they're not buying the paper, they're buying the hemp, and then all of a sudden marijuana gets outlawed. Right. So it can boil down to patents and stuff. And I wholeheartedly believe there's probably some cures for some other things, but they're just patented and people aren't going to give the stuff out.
Well, let's talk about the stupidity of the government just for a second. Okay. This is not political. This is just plain outright stupidity.
Are you going to bring up the gas can?
No. What I'm going to bring up is the pseudoephedrine. Okay. Apparently, prime ingredient in crack or something, in methamphetamine. All right. So we outlaw it. You have to, or not outlaw it, but we control it now even more so than we did before. Somebody want to explain to me, or at least tell me anywhere, please, God, anywhere on the planet where somebody's taken a bottle of fucking NyQuil and made methamphetamine out of it?
It's all over the place, man. So
it's actually...
a bottle of NyQuil.
They make meth out of that stuff all the time. Meth labs all over rural America, they buy pseudoephedrine, whatever those over-the-counter drugs, as many as they can from everybody that they can, and turn them into drugs in these horrible, nasty chemical backyard labs. And I mean, they're lucky if they don't kill themselves, but it's a huge problem. And these over-the-counter drugs are one of the possible ways to do it. There are a few other ones that they could use, but it's a fairly popular one. And unfortunately, the reduction in the amount of pseudoephedrine and such that you can buy hasn't stopped it. It just made it a little more difficult for them. So whether that's worth it or not, I don't know, but it is definitely a problem. They're using these over-the-counter drugs to make meth.
Wait, no, that's not my argument.
Okay.
My argument is it was a blanket statement. It's a blanket law.
Well, yeah.
All right. Why the fuck is NyQuil? They're not making crack out of NyQuil. They're not making methamphetamine out of NyQuil. Okay.
That was also another thing, is because if you drink enough of it, like kids. They do the same thing with cough syrup, because it's got an ingredient called DXM in it.
Yeah.
And they literally call it robo-tripping. So, I can go to my local store, get a bottle of Robitussin and drink the whole entire damn thing and be high for 6 or 7 hours.
Yeah.
So that's why they started.
Cold symptoms are gone.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, listen, I've got a cold. Let me go down to my local corner and pick up a NyQuil crack rock or whatever. Okay.
And I go through a bottle of NyQuil a week at least.
Yeah, but I mean, that was kind of the basis for him doing it, which I kind of laugh about myself, because you're right. It's a blanket statement, because you're assuming everybody that comes in there to buy that box of Sudafed is like, hey, you're cooking dope.
Yeah.
So you've kind of, hindered the public that's actually doing what they're supposed to do. But here's the thing. I can be, Walter fucking White and be like, hey, I'll give you a gram of my shit if you go down to Walgreens and you pick me up the 2 boxes of Sudafed that you're allowed to buy by law, and then you get your family members to do it. I'll give them a gram, and then you get everybody around you to start bringing me Sudafed, and I'll cut some money off your shit.
Yeah.
So you really didn't do anything. You just made it harder for the general public to get medication.
Yeah.
It doesn't work.
No, it never has and never will. I mean, it's, again, in a lot of cases, people who've been sitting in a chair in an office in the D.C. area and have no clue what's really going on out in the real world.
Oh,
it is what it is.
I mean, realistically, if we wanted to get realistic with it, the average person can cook methamphetamine right in their kitchen with stuff that they have right now. So it's not like you're really stopping anything by saying, hey, let me take the Sudafed off.
I think we should be clear. We are not recommending that any of our listeners do that.
No, not by any means. No. We're bitching. We're just bitching.
I do not condone the use, the manufacture, or the selling of methamphetamine, because I'll tell you, I used to work in a state and a federal prison, and I've seen what that shit does to people. So I don't condone it. You know, if you're
I
going to
live
do
in
it,
Appalachia. I see what it does to
we
people
don't,
every day.
yeah,
Yeah.
we don't want to know about it. If you're going to be stupid enough to do it, well, you do you, but don't tell us. We're not condoning you do it.
No, not by any means.
Well,
Listen, the way that a lot of these drugs are used by the public are they're misused. Okay. And nobody wants to get to the root cause of why they're used. Now, for some people, a lot of veterans I've talked to will use, different variations of marijuana to treat their symptoms for anxiety, depression, PTSD. All right. If it works, good on you. I got no problems. Okay. We're talking about we're talking about these idiots out there that are doing hard drugs, meth, heroin, cocaine, that sort of thing. And it's just solidly being abused. Now, let's be clear. You can't go to a drugstore and buy these things that I'm aware of. But it's still available. You can still find this on the streets. Who are we making rich? I don't know what the numbers are off the top of my head, but I know that hard drug use has dropped in those states that have legalized marijuana. And those states are raking in big money too on the taxes.
Oh yeah, I mean here personally, I think it's taxed at about 7%.
That's not
where
bad.
are you at, DB?
I'm in Oklahoma.
Okay.
But I mean, coming from somebody that and it's no secret. I mean, I'm literally sponsored by a cannabis company. So I mean, if we want to talk about the benefits of the medical marijuana and stuff like that, we can certainly get into it. If anybody's got questions about it, I'll talk to you.
Yeah, maybe we hook that up on Wednesday.
Oh, we'll do this on Wednesday? Okay.
Yeah.
I was about to say, we could probably go off and talk about drugs and the legal issues and all that stuff till doomsday. But I think there are some other news articles and stuff you wanted to get to.
I don't really give a shit, but still.
Oh, all right.
No, it's a good conversation that we're having that, most people don't have. And again, if it's illegal in your state, don't do it. You want to be able to do it legally, relocate. Okay?
Yeah. Move to Oklahoma, we could use the population.
Yeah. Well, if y'all quit flying away in those fucking tornadoes you keep getting.
Oh my God, dude.
All right. Exactly. That's why I'm in the South Texas region.
Yeah.
I will not condone it. I have used marijuana medicinally when I was in Colorado, but that was only then. I did not bring any back with me. I left it there, and that's all there was. Oh, got a new viewer. Hi, welcome. Nice to see you. Thanks for stopping in. Actually, two. Hey, thanks for stopping in the channel. Don't forget to hit the follow button. I'd appreciate that. What we'll do, we'll set up a night where the three of us can get on, and we will discuss a little more in depth, and I can do some more research on the topic, because my stuff is just kind of cursory, if you will. I haven't delved into it. So if you give me some time to do that, we can have a night that we'll do a special and have some people on, and you two hopefully, and then anybody else that wants to jump in on the conversation, and we can discuss this a little more in depth.
Absolutely. I'm good with that.
I would be a little sad that I wouldn't be able to demonstrate the marijuana activities because my state does not allow that, and we can't.
I mean, my state allows it. What are you trying to demonstrate? I mean, I'm kind of already there right now.
Oh, hey, there you go.
I had to work, man. My back and stuff's killing me.
I'll bet it is. So, all right, back to the news stories. Stupid idiots. Navy officer guilty of hiding ties to a Chinese businessman. Okay, so for those of you who have been in the military or know anything or working in the government, you have to have a security clearance. One of the questions is, do you know anybody, from a foreign country and you have any kind of business dealings or anything like that? Well, you got to answer yes. But here's why he said no. If you read right down there, he was buying guns. He's been convicted of export crimes.
It's impressive.
Not really. This is an officer. He's college educated.
Yeah, that was my point. You didn't think that was a bad idea?
What the fuck? Okay? Now, I get you're lower enlisted. You're stupid. Okay? There was a news article not too long ago that military members are being paid money by drug cartels to grab their coyotes down at the border and drive them inland. Okay? Or they're being paid money to pick up people, at the border and drive them in and drop them off someplace. It's easy, fast money unless you get busted. All right. They had a couple get busted from Colorado, I want to say. Colorado National Guard. No. They were active duty. They were getting about, I think, $500 a person. And they picked them up inside the United States. So it wasn't like they drove over the border and came back. They just picked them up, about a mile or so, whatever it was, and then driving them to a location and dropping them off. Well, they're in Leavenworth now, of course, because that is illegal. But I mean, rack this up under Florida man, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, this is just fucking stupid.
Yeah, this kind of international crime is obviously just becoming more of a problem, just because as travel between countries becomes easier, and shipping over the internet and the dark web, and all, there's all these factors combining to make this kind of major international criminal organization even more and more easy, if you will. So it's definitely a thing we're going to have to figure out how to do international investigations and international arrests and all kinds of other international issues. We're going to have to kind of take a look at it and see what we can't do to at least make crimes like this a little bit easier to investigate and prosecute.
Well, the problem is we got to catch them in the process, and a lot of this it happens so quietly. It's a matter of somebody making a mistake on the form and them getting they're getting caught, or going to the same store twice in a month to buy stuff. They're going to start throwing up red flags, and they're going to start making phone calls. Excuse me. But of course, how they caught him, because he had to have a top secret right there. He did not disclose any close or continuing contact with foreign nationals. That is a requirement. Okay. Now, imagine the fun you have as a civilian or even military member stationed in a foreign country, and you have to answer that question.
Yeah. If I had to do that right now, I have a whole bunch of contacts in the Philippines, because the Department of Justice flew me out to the Philippines a couple of times to work with them on some cybercrime issues. And it would take me days to fill out all the people from that part of the world that I'm now working with.
Well, see, that's where your security officer comes into play, and we can help narrow that down. That's what our job is just to help you out and make sure everything goes right. But, if you've got to put out 30 pages of people that and you have close contact with, you've had dinner at their house, you talk to them, monthly, things like that, then, yeah, those people need to be put down. But, you met this guy at a conference one time, and you've emailed back and forth once or twice a year. Not really, not so much.
Oh, that's good to know. And I'm glad to hear that they have somebody who's there to help guide you through the process. I was actually, it looked like I might have been able to get a top secret clearance at one point, because we were doing a lot of work with the military, and I was really excited about it. Thought it could be really cool and fun and open up a lot of opportunities, but unfortunately it fell through, so I never did get a chance to do it.
Oh, it will open up a ton of opportunities. But you'll find unless you're in a high-end scientific region, if you will, you're not going to get anything much more than a secret, depending on what the contract is for. So let's move on to space.
The final frontier.
Yeah. Russia, in its infinite wisdom, launched an anti-satellite weapon at one of their own satellites to test and destroy it. Guess what happened? It worked. Now.
All right. So I am a huge NASA geek. I have entire bookshelves full of books about astronauts and space and all this stuff. So this story was one that really stuck out to me. So I, looking at the research on this, one thing I found out is that they're not the first country to do this. So India has done it. The U.S. was the first to do it.
Yeah.
And then, of course, China did it a couple years ago. But the important thing was, at least with the American and the Indian version,
Hey, Mama Rico, thanks for the host.
Huh?
Mama Rico did a host. Thank you very much.
Oh, awesome. So the target for the American and the Indian test, at least, were much lower orbit than the International Space Station flies at, and they were shot in such a way that the debris would go like down instead of up.
Right.
Whereas Russia chose a satellite target that was much higher in its orbit, i.e., roughly the same height as the International Space Station, and they aimed the weapon to where the debris would kind of go any which way.
Right.
Both of which were really stupid decisions. And now they're not only endangering the American and European astronauts, but they're also endangering their own cosmonauts, which makes zero sense.
Wait. When has Russia ever really given a shit about their cosmonauts?
Well, it's not that they care about them as people. It's that they would care about the international kind of embarrassment of having killed their own guys, No,
they could care less.
You think?
They really could. Yeah, I think so. Hi, we got some new viewers. Hi, welcome to the channel. Thanks for stopping in. Hope you enjoy
Dark,
it.
I don't know if you noticed, but you have 11 viewers right now.
Okay, number I'm seeing says 8, but that works for me.
It just jumped up to 11.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thanks for hey, everybody Thanks for stopping in. I'm enjoying. I'm happy to have you.
You are going to hit the big time any day now.
Right. Here, let me take my anxiety medications to slow it down.
So the other thing you got to worry about with the International Space Station is, if it's going to get hit by debris, which it gets hit by debris fairly often, but there's two things you got to know about what you're going to get hit by, and that's size and speed. And it's specifically designed to get hit by the small stuff at relatively low velocities and not really suffer any damage. It's got some shielding. So, little paint flecks and teeny tiny little things hit it relatively commonly, in fact. And it's just not at such a speed, doesn't have enough mass to really puncture a hole in the thing.
Right.
The really danger situation, I just got done reading the autobiography of an astronaut named Scott Kelly. He's the twin brother of the guy who just won the Arizona Senate race.
Yes. Yeah.
So Scott Kelly was on the International Space Station for a year. And there was a situation similar to this where there was a satellite kind of in the wrong orbit, and they took shelter in their escape vehicles, just like these guys yesterday did. But looking at the math, the satellite that they were hoping didn't hit them was large enough and traveling at insane speeds in the opposite direction. And if it had hit the station, there was nothing. I mean, sitting right there in their escape ship wouldn't have helped at all. The resulting explosion would have been so insanely powerful that they would have been dead before they even realized they had been hit. With sufficient mass and sufficient relative speed, the damage is just absolutely disturbingly catastrophic. So that's kind of the real nightmare scenario.
Let's also keep in mind,
hole really isn't that big a deal.
Yeah. Let's also keep in mind one thing. This was built by the lowest bidder.
Yes.
So how safe is it really?
I mean, so are our gas masks. Did you ever
Yeah.
think about that?
Yeah, no, I thought about it. Oh, please. I was
And-
driving when I was in Korea, stationed in Korea. I was driving an M557, an armored tracked personnel carrier from the 50s.
You know, good
I th-
enough for government work.
I think the track that was still on it was from the 50s.
So,
I mean, good enough for government work.
Yeah.
The good news is NASA has a pretty good record with these things. I mean, if you think about the space shuttle is probably the most complicated system ever designed by man. And it was the stupid, simple stuff that caused the loss of 2 of them. The orbiter itself was never the point of failure. With Challenger, it was the solid rocket booster, which was supposed to be this super, super simple, incredibly reliable rocket. And with the Columbia, it was the foam on the external tank, which it's foam. Like, how complicated can foam get? So,
the Challenger wasn't the solid rocket booster. It was actually the Challenger was not a solid rocket booster failure. The Challenger was the fuel connection between the shuttle and the fuel tank, that large liquid fuel tank.
Yeah, that got burned through. That was the point of failure, but it failed because it was burned by outgassing from the solid rocket booster. So you're right in that's the part that ended up failing, but it failed because the booster was the O-rings didn't seal right, and it shot fire out the side instead of out the back. But anyway, what my point is, the International Space Station is an absolute.
Hey, Poison, thanks for the host. I appreciate it.
If you guys have the time, go on YouTube and do just search for a tour of the International Space Station, because when astronauts are showing you around their home, it's just absolutely fascinating. And Russia, stupid.
Yeah, no kidding.
Bring it back around.
Okay, so we have that. We've got that story. What was this one? Oh, new treatment court in North Carolina gives veterans a second chance. Now, I haven't read this yet.
They're talking about Veterans Court.
Yes, it's a specific veterans court. Some states have it, and others, some don't. They're taking into account some of the issues that veterans are having with their PTSD, anxiety, depression, yada, 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 and are trying to get them into treatment facilities instead of giving them a criminal record.
Yeah, I've always looked very highly on like veteran court because, and we talk about, and we get it boiled down to, like, I heard Darks, mention it earlier, or maybe you didn't mention it, but the video mentioned it. Some people do have very, very short tempers and stuff when it comes to PTSD, and it's no secret that when the emotions are up, you have the trigger points, the PTSD is acting up. You're not thinking in your right state of mind, and you fly off that handle and you do something that a normal person wouldn't normally do. When it really boils down to is that person doesn't necessarily need a prison sentence or a jail sentence, whatever the crime says. They actually need the rehabilitation. They need that more than anything, and like that is pretty awesome that some of the states have now started adopting the Veterans Court rather than sending these people that clearly do have an issue to regular court. So that's what's up.
Yeah, I mean, they congratulated him when he came back into the court because it was day 73 of his sobriety. I mean, it's one of those things of getting them into the right place and getting them the help that they desperately need, instead of throwing them under the bus and going from there.
Yeah.
Toxic, thanks for the host. I appreciate it.
I haven't seen any research on Veterans Court specifically, but I have seen research on similar things like, DWI courts and specific courts for drugs and all these other different issues. And most of the research that I've seen has shown that it significantly reduces recidivism rates. And for those who don't know, recidivism just means, do you commit another crime again afterwards? So we want to get those as low as possible. And these kind of specialty focused on just your situation kind of courts seem to do a really good job in reducing those recidivism rates.
Yeah, it's a wonderful thing that they're doing. I mean, like I said, as opposed to giving them a criminal record, you know, listen, you screwed up. We understand this. Nobody's dead. Nobody got raped. Those level crimes are happening. Drunken disorder, these things like that is what is maybe even. I hate to say that some level of maybe a domestic disturbance of some kind, but no physical harm has come to other people. Hopefully, that kind of thing. That's what they take into account, and they're not going to give them a record for it. They're going to, they're giving them this opportunity. Now, if they fail out of it, they're getting, judged in court for, whatever the crime was. So, it's an opportunity to take that, to provide them an opportunity to listen, your behavior is wrong, whatever you're in this case, I'm going because the sobriety is day 73. And according to this, when this happened, you're talking about they were self-medicating with alcohol, okay, or drugs. They were trying to keep those demons at bay, on their own without seeking outside help. Hopefully, Mr. Paris will keep running with this and, get back into society, get an apartment, things that need to be done. And then, this goes back to the MDMA thing. Hopefully, again, reach out to your people, your legislators, have them push the FDA to get this done. All right. The research is there. Speed it up. You got COVID out in months, the COVID vaccine in months. Okay. We have the data to go along with this. Why in the world can't we just make it happen?
So in my field, there's a huge controversy over, why do people commit crime? And how do we stop people from committing crime? And there's all kinds of research that shows, this maybe a little, this other thing maybe a little. But we all kind of get our own opinions about the overarching theory or policies that the country should follow. And my kind of personal, one of my favorite policies that I think we should focus on it's called stakes in conformity, right? And it's kind of the fancy criminological way of saying we need to give people something to lose. And if they already have something to lose, we need to work hard to not take that away.
Right.
So for issues like this, where it's a relatively low level of crime, the first time offender, these kind of situations can give people or help people maintain these stakes in conformity, a job, a family, all these things where if they went into the regular court system and even had to do a couple of months in jail, they lose their job. They might get kicked out of whatever apartment they're renting.
Mm-hmm.
And they would lose all those stakes in conformity that can help prevent them from reoffending. So these kind of programs, I'm a huge fan. Anything that allows them to keep their job, keep their rent, keep their family together, all those things. The more we can support that, I think the better off we're going to be.
Oh, I agree wholeheartedly.
I mean, and it's sorry, Dirk, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I mean, for me, it's the stability that it helps provide.
Exactly. It's all about that stability. And this guy, it sounds like he got even more stakes in conformity by going through this program.
Yes.
So, yeah, big fan.
And see, what my take on it is, and the reason why I like the system so much, and you kind of brought it up too here, is yes, it is like a system that is like specifically tailored to the person. But when we talk about crime and managing that crime, so we take a person that might have some mental issues. If we don't address the actual mental issues, then you do nothing to stop recidivism rates. So it kind of boils down to the treat at the actual problem versus just throwing you in jail and not actually treating the problem. So when you get out, you're probably going to have the same problems that you went in with. And that is, in turn, without a doubt, going to increase the recidivism rate. So programs like that have done a lot of good.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was shortly before, I mean, I was actually going to school for my bachelor's in criminal justice. So I've done a little bit of research on this. And one of the things that we did bring up was Veterans Court. I know you said you didn't do much research on it or whatever, but it was actually part of one of my term papers.
Really?
And they actually, yes, they actually have like an 85% success rate in many of the states that have adopted this for Veterans Court. It has an 85% success rate. So you're telling me that 85% of these veterans, if we actually treat the problem at its core, find out what that problem is for that person, tailor a program to that person that they have to abide by, that we're actually doing some good and turning around that behavior. Because if it didn't, then they'd most likely be getting the drunken disorderlies and this and that again.
Yep.
So realistically, we're actually treating a problem rather than punishing a problem.
Right. And
I hope that made sense.
It did. And we need more of this. I mean, if we could do this on a grand scale in, I don't know, all the prison systems, you might have a better opportunity of dropping the recidivism rates instead of, you do your time, here you go, here's your shit, get out.
Well, you have to look at it from a different aspect too when you start talking about the prison system, okay? So I've worked in both federal prison system and state prison system, okay? The federal prison system has a lot bigger budget than any state prison budget I've ever seen. I can speak from my state, but we didn't have much of a budget at all. Did we have programs for substance abuse and stuff like that? Yes, we absolutely did. But the problem is there's so many people that are trying to get into these programs, they can't, a lot of them can't get in, or a lot of them don't have the points to get in.
Right.
This and that. So you look at it and it's like, okay, we're gonna send this person to prison. We're gonna give them a whole bunch of high crime rate points to where they can't even get into these programs, but yet the initial reason why they were there, so to speak, is like for a trafficking charge.
Right.
I'll use trafficking and methamphetamine because it's a huge deal here in my state.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You don't know how many people I've seen with trafficking methamphetamine on their record as I had to book them into our system. It is outrageous.
I don't remember the exact number, but the percentage of all people who go into the prison system who have a problem with drugs or alcohol is well above 50%.
Yes.
I would venture to say it's about 75%. And
something like
what
that.
It's about that. And what they don't tell you is that it's mostly the women that have the substance abuse issues.
Yeah.
But there's underlying problems as well under the substance abuse issues that have taken place, which has caused the substance abuse issues.
Yeah.
A lot of them that I've talked to have dealt with a lot of trauma in their life. So we can go back to the original core issue and say, okay, maybe if we would have treated the initial problem, this behavior may not have happened. Now that's not true for everybody. Some of them just wanted to ball out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But there's a lot of them that just had issues in their life and made some stupid mistakes and decisions, and that's what's landed them where they were.
Yeah, one of the good things that's happening in kind of the fields of, psychology mainly and other fields also is, we're finally starting to see addiction not in a vacuum, but seeing it as a response to trauma, and that I think is really going to show a lot of promise and a lot of progress for helping people end those addiction issues.
Absolutely. And I mean, that's the thing, you want to end the recidivism rates and stuff. I've always said this, and I've done this for a few years. I worked behind there for a few years, and I've seen all of it. If we would just do that and offer more programs and make them more easily to get into, I'm not saying take, Karen, who just stabbed her child 37 times in the neck, and let her get into a program immediately. That's not what I'm saying, because some people are just kind of dangerous people. So there needs to be a system that I guess could more classify those people that have those substance abuse issues and get them the help that they need. And it's not only that, but I mean, when you look at it from the other standpoint, is there's not much psychiatric care when it comes to the prison system. Sure, you've got chaplains you can go speak to, you've got some mental health doctors and stuff, but if we look at it from the truth of it, they're completely overran, they're overworked, they're understaffed.
And it's not just the prison system. I mean, it's unless you have really good insurance, it's hard to be able to find a psychiatrist or psychologist and be able to pay for it and be able to go as much as you really should be going. Just psychiatric healthcare in general is bad. It's obviously it's even worse in the prison system, but
yes.
Well,
absolutely. But if it was easily gettable, I mean, if it was more easy to get on the outside, we probably wouldn't see that many people in prison that needed it.
Absolutely.
We might actually put a dent in that population.
Well, Poison's got a good point. Poison Plum is that there's a lack of necessary caregivers, if you will, with the proper certificates, licenses and things like that. And they're not going to get paid as much, than as opposed to having a private practice. So, you got to look at that. And Mama Recall, you're right. Some people just can't be. I mean, they're just wired to that. I mean, you look at serial killers and other people, even some drug users. Their brain wiring is totally different, and they have they have a super ability to be addicted to almost anything.
So yes, those people exist, but the media kind of overstates their prevalence. The vast majority of felons only ever get convicted of one. The stereotypical guy who has a rap sheet a mile long, they do exist, but they're actually a comparatively small percentage of all offenders.
Yeah.
And people like that are just in and out of prison over and over and over and over. Whether they can be rehabilitated or not, probably much less likely than with most people.
Well, unfortunately, prisons have gone away from rehab to just incarceration.
Yeah, well, we're getting pretty far afield. You're right.
All right, gentlemen, thank you for your time. I'm going to have to shut this down. We're almost at an hour and 20 minutes in. I want to thank you both.
But after you shut down, I'll send you the bill for the time. We agreed on $50 an hour, right? Is that?
I'm sorry, you're breaking up. Resubmit that in triplicate on letterhead. Send it through DV Recoil.
Okay. Yeah, and I have a hell of a problem losing paperwork, so you'll have to submit it several times. I'm worse than the DMV.
Listen, guys, this was an absolute blast. Thank you so much. Next time, just give me a little bit more heads up. I can be a little bit more prepared. But this was a blast. I'd love to do it again.
All right, great. I appreciate having you here. Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, thank you, man.
And Recoil, thanks for stopping in. We'll see you on Wednesday, and we will find some other stupid shit to talk about. And with that, I'm going to close out the stream tonight. Everybody, thank you very much for stopping in and watching and listening to us. I appreciate you. I appreciate having you here. Take care of yourself. Take care of everybody around you. And we will see you on Wednesday. Wrong one. That's the one.